everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your AMAC podcast, Better for America, and this is a show that you don't want to miss. Today we have with us Senator Rand Paul. Now, Senator Paul represents over 28,000 AMAC members in the great state of Kentucky and hosted 2 meet and greets with AMAC members. An ophthalmologist since 1993, Senator Paul is an AMAC Patriot Award recipient, as well as one of the nation's leading advocates for liberty, fiscal responsibility, and combating government overreach. He is proudly outspoken and dedicated to our country. It is an honor to have him with us here today. Senator Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate it, and I want to jump right in. Your presence in the media has been heightened, and for all the right reasons. You are extremely persistent in exposing Dr. Fauci and the CDC, specifically regarding information that you believe should not be held back from the public. For example, in a recent hearing, you played a 2004 video of Dr. Fauci when he insists that contracting a virus is the best way to build immunity. If we could, let's take a listen.
But she's had the flu for 14 days. Should she get a flu shot?
Well, no. If she got the flu for 14 days, she's as protected as anybody can be, because the best vaccination is to get infected yourself.
And
So
she should not get it?
if she really has the flu, she definitely doesn't need a flu vaccine. If she really has the flu,
She
right.
should not get it again.
No, she doesn't need it, because it's the most potent vaccination is getting infected yourself.
So, Senator, why did Dr. Fauci suddenly change his views about immunity? And this is a question our members are asking. He admitted in 2004 when he said that immunity can be best achieved when there are antibodies to that disease in someone's system. In other words, for the millions of Americans who had COVID and have fully recovered, why has he so vehemently opposed anyone who rejects the jab?
You know, this is perplexing to a lot of us. It's never really been controversial. It's been accepted. It's part of immunology 101. Every doctor knows this. Every nurse knows this. And most of the general public knows this, that when you've had an infection, you develop immunity. That may not be perfect. You may be still able to get the virus again, but you've seen the virus, so you have a memory, you have an immune response that will challenge the virus if you get it again. In fact, if we check the blood of every American, or let's say 1,000 random Americans, we find that 99% of America now has immunity, either from the vaccine or from the disease or from both. And what's good about this is the virus they call the novel coronavirus is no longer novel. It's not new. We've all seen it. We've all developed immunity, and so we have a degree of defense. It can't just overwhelm most of us. There still are a few people dying from this, but they're the vulnerable. So we need to target our resources to the vulnerable. Age is a big risk factor, so is weight. If you've got both of them, if you've got a number of birthdays and you've got a number of pounds overweight, you still are at some risk to this, whether you've been vaccinated or have had it. But the thing is to ignore immunology, to ignore the protective effect of this, is to give people bad and incorrect information. So if you're a mother and you've got a 4-year-old kid and you're wanting to know should they be vaccinated, Dr. Fauci should admit to the public, what is the protective effect? My 4-year-old's already had COVID. Same question that the mom asked about the flu. Does my child need to get a vaccine if they've already had COVID? And the answer is no. It's still the same answer that he gave in 2004, but somewhere along the line, he's changed his mind. Now, I don't know if we can determine why he changed his mind, but it is alarming. And because he is no longer paying attention to the science, I think he should no longer be in a position to influence public behavior.
That's a very good point. And you mentioned the word incorrect information, and that leads me to a question I have on censorship. Now, we know that 2 Republican-led states, that's Missouri and Louisiana, they're suing the Biden admin for pressuring and colluding with big tech to censor free speech. And the CDC was also named in the lawsuit, among others. Now, the attorneys claim that big tech was involved in the suppression of speech relating to the lab leak theory of COVID-19's origin and suppression of speech about the efficacy of masks and COVID-19 lockdowns, the efficiency of those tactics. And the attorneys asked the court to stop Biden officials and other defendants from engaging in their unlawful conduct. My question, sir, is assuming Republicans gain control of Congress, how might they fight back against social media giants who are censoring and suppressing our free speech?
Well, it is alarming. You know, for nearly a year, Facebook said that anybody who was presenting evidence that the virus leaked from a lab was a conspiracy theorist, and they suppressed that. For over a year, YouTube has taken my videos down. I don't participate on YouTube anymore, but when I did, they were taking videos down that said that cloth masks don't work. So when we will come into power, and hopefully we will, Republicans will win in the fall. When we do, we're going to investigate these things. You mentioned that the attorney generals of Louisiana and Missouri have asked for emails. So we're going to get the information. We will use the subpoena power because at every turn, Dr. Fauci has resisted transparency. So for example, we asked Dr. Fauci, is anybody on the vaccine committees receiving royalties from the companies that make the vaccines? And his response was, we're not going to tell you. So a federal judge then mandated through the Freedom of the Information Act that they reveal it, and they did, and they redacted it all. They whited it all out. The only information we got was actually disturbing but incomplete, was that 1,800 scientists at NIH received $193 million. But they won't tell us which scientists, they won't tell us how much each scientist got, or the company they got it from. And so I think it's an honest and very important question. Is anybody on the vaccine committee getting money from people who make the vaccines? Think about it this way. If you were on the local school board and you also manufactured textbooks, would you be allowed to vote on who the contract goes to for textbooks if you're on the board and you also own the company that makes the textbooks? No, nobody allows that. Everybody is always required, whether it's the county board, your church board, or your state board, you're always required to divulge where you get your money from so you wouldn't have a conflict of interest. And yet Dr. Fauci says we don't have to tell you. And then he cites a law from 1980 saying we don't have to tell you. But I can promise you this, we're going to change that law, and we're also going to use the subpoena power to get every scrap of paper, because the thing is, this virus, which I absolutely believe came from a lab, it could happen again, and it could be a much worse virus. In the end, as bad as this virus was, and I don't want to downplay it, but the death rate was about 0.3% overall. What if it was 50%? What if we lost half of civilization because we took a really deadly virus and we made it aerosolized or more transmissible, more contagious? Why would we be wanting to do that? And so there needs to be more oversight, more regulation of this kind of research. The taxpayers are paying for it, so I don't think we should be paying for something that's this dangerous.
You know, thank you so much for that. You've said so many important things there, but you give us hope for the future, because we need people with great courage such as you, who's going to press on and do what's right for the good of America and for our future. And we've got to learn what we did wrong and what not to do again. God willing, this kind of thing, we don't see this again in our lifetime, but we've got to learn. So I thank you for giving us so much hope for our future. That's really where my last question, I'll leave you with one last question, sir. I want to talk about hope for our future. We are less than 50 days away from the November 8th midterms. What should media outlets do to ensure that the red wave turns into a red tsunami? Outlets such as AMAC, engaging with over 2 million members monthly.
You know, I think it's important to remember what made our country great in the first place. What made our country great was this idea that our rights come from our Creator, they come from God,
Amen.
And that these rights are what the government was instituted to protect. The government wasn't instituted to give you some money that your friend has that you don't have. It wasn't instituted to redistribute money. It was to protect our liberty and our rights. But as a consequence of this freedom, we've developed enormous prosperity. I mean, we're the richest country in the history of the world. The poor in our country are the middle class in most other countries. So when we look around and we see this vast wealth that our country has, we need to not say, oh, it's automatic, it just happens because we're here in America. No, it happens because of our freedom, and we have to protect it. We have to protect the economic system, which is capitalism, voluntarism, the idea that if you work hard and you can sell your services or your wares or your products to somebody, largely unimpeded by the federal government. And what that leads to is prosperity for all. And I think we've forgotten that. I think if we remember that when we go to the polls and say, I want to vote for people who understand what made our country great and will keep our country great, I think we'll be okay. But there's always the allure and the competition of other people, charlatans that will come forward and say, but we'll give you free college or a free car or a free cell phone. You know, that allure of something for nothing is always something that we have to resist. And we have to resist it because in the end, that passing out of free money led to the terrible inflation we have now that's actually hurting the poor and the senior citizens worse than anything else could have. So we have to resist the allure and the bait and switch of something for nothing. Remember that what we want in government is protection of our freedom, our liberty, and largely to have government leave us alone.
That's exactly right. And that's why AMAC proudly stands for faith, a family, and freedom. And we understand that the values that make this country so great are really rooted in those three major things. So important. Senator, it was a complete honor to have you with us today because your courage and your leadership and your dedication to our great nation is so widely appreciated by over 2 million AMAC members. And thank you for all that you are doing in this fight for freedom.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
God bless you, sir. And I want to thank each and every one of you out there listening. Thank you for tuning in. Watch, listen, track breaking news and more like this podcast by downloading the AMAC News app. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share wherever you are on social media. Until next time, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Have a great day, everyone.